Hey folks, this is Seth from Seth's Games and Guides here, and I just want to do a quick tutorial for SimCity again about something that me and my buddy realized a lot of people would have a little bit of challenge understanding. Some people won't, because that's just how their brains work, you know, you can't really fault anyone for it. But one of the key factors to this game is knowing what your city needs and what's going on with your city and where things are impacting what. So this is going to be a Datamaps tutorial real quick. I'm going to do my best to run through it as fast as I can, but there are a lot of them, so bear with me. Let's see, first off we've got population map, so you can see where most of the workers are, where, you know, students, tourists, shoppers, etc. are located at. It's pretty basic stuff. It helps you manage your density. As you can see, everything's pretty low. It's all low density stuff right now because I just slapped this up in sandbox mode just to give you an example. You've got some high density shopping right there, a lot of workers in town hall and the police precinct. So pretty much this kind of helps you understand a little bit of your density and where most of the people will be, which helps you improve roads, prioritizing that in addition to other things, just so you can kind of tell where most of the traffic's going to be. Next we have the happiness map, which is pretty straightforward. You know, the greener they are, the happier they are, redder they are, sadder they are, and then you can typically find out what's wrong with them. This shop says closed, still needs workers. So obviously it's not going to be happy, but it's not sad. It's still keeping positive. And then you've got this one making a lot of profits. This one closed for the day. So it's just kind of stuff like that. And then residential ones will be saying different things. Great places to shop. That's what most of these are saying, actually. This one, we're doing well. You know, this one says no shoppers. So, and then building density map. This one's actually really important. You want all these to get green, that way they will turn into larger buildings. So you can kind of go around here, $30 profit, 26 simoleon profit, etc. So you can kind of tell whether they're doing well or not doing well. Civilians will be doing it based on happiness, residential areas that is, will be upgrading density based on happiness. Shops also upgrade based on happiness, but that's level of wealth. They upgrade in density when they get enough profit. Profit is done by having enough residential to actually go to all the shops and do all these things. So you want to find that happy medium of residential and commercial. And like I said in my last video, you actually don't need as much commercial as you think. And then up here, these are all the factories. They're doing decently. They could be doing better. Over here we've got our residential map, which shows the happiness of buildings versus the money they're making. All of them are pretty damn high. Happiness 19, happiness 9, you know. Not everyone's going to be the same, of course. But this is actually pretty decent, especially for the start of a game. Granted, I started with 1,000,000 simoleons because, hey, sandbox mode. But that's kind of what you're looking for. The higher the bar, the better in this map. Kind of shows you where you need to focus your parks and your quality of life improvement. And then money will also tell you what areas are ready to move up in wealth level. If they have high bars, then you can plop a park down there and they're likely to change to higher wealth houses. And then that's also based on density as well, so you want to keep that in mind. Here we have the commercial map, which shows tourist sales, basically, so souvenirs, and money per shop, which again helps you gauge where you want to increase the wealth at. And finally, goods. So what kind of good it is. It says low wealth merchandise, and then how much of it they actually have. So a lot of these shops actually don't have very many goods, so you want to increase your freight probably, that's what that tells you. If you don't have a lot of souvenirs in your shops, it's probably because you're not getting a lot of demand for it, aka you're not getting a lot of tourists, which largely is the case here because the only thing I have is a train station up here to pull in a few tourists, which is why there's some souvenirs around. Next we'll do industrial map. This shows you how much money and how much freight things are pushing out at any given time. A lot of these places are doing well, but they don't have a lot of places to ship their freight. I do have a trade depot and a train depot there, but more commercial means more places to ship freight. So you want to find that happy medium between commercial and industrial and commercial and residential. Additionally, industrial is usually in high demand because that's where you're going to end up with a lot of low and medium wealth jobs until you upgrade higher tech. So you have the residential industrial play there too. This is one of the most important maps in the game though, is land value. This will help you determine where you want to zone residential, where you need to focus on improving quality of life in that area by upping land value as well, and where you don't want to zone residential. Basically, as everyone who's played this game I'm sure is understood, is you don't want to put a factory next to a house because factories greatly reduce your land value. Same goes with, you know, ore mining, oil mining, coal mining. Same stuff. For all intents and purposes, that is industrial. And then down here you can see I've placed a few buildings. Parks obviously increase land value, but things that you might not notice improving land value but you need to keep in mind so that you can manage your low versus medium versus high wealth residents is the clinic and any kind of hospital, pretty much any kind of service. You've got a fire station over here, improving it here, you've got the precinct here, the clinic here, and even the town hall. So it's always good to pull this up if you think you're having money issues or you don't have enough balance in low, medium, and high wealth. And if you're aiming for like an all high wealth city, then this tells you where you need to improve. And then finally we have industrial tech map, which I can't show you on this because I didn't build any education here, but basically you can see the various factories with different levels of tech and their progress towards a technological upgrade, which the way you do that is building education. The higher levels of education and the closer they are to your factories, the higher level it's going to be. This one is fairly standard. It's your power map. If it's yellow, it's getting power. If it's gray, it's off, and if it's red, it's unpowered. Pretty much everything's receiving power because I've got the concentrated solar arrays. It also leaves your power plant in color so you can tell where it's coming from. Water table map, again, pretty self-explanatory, shows you where the most concentrated amount of water is, where the most is you can draw, and also water pollution, which comes from your factories, as you might imagine, and your mining operations. So again, you want to keep those kinds of services away from your industrial area. Pretty much you want your industrial area secluded from everything else. Unfortunately, that causes problems with services like fire and medical and things like that because it's harder for them to get there. So typically I find if you can get 2 of each service, it's fairly expensive. Make sure you have the money to do it, but usually putting one closer to the industrial area, especially when you start getting hazmat fire issues, put one closer to the industrial area and one in your residential / commercial area, and you should be good to go there. Sewage map, again, pretty standard, points out ground pollution, which is primarily from factories, sewage outflow pipes, which I didn't place one down, I just slapped down a treatment plant. And your mines create most of it, actually, in addition to your factories will build it up over time. This game hasn't been running very long, so you can't see it, but it does. Finally, you've got, or additionally, I should say, we've got waste disposal map, which shows your larger trash generating buildings. So, you know, town hall is going to be making a lot because it's got a lot of workers there. Low-income houses won't make too much because they don't have a lot of people. The higher density, the more garbage is going to be generated. The mines, of course, and public places like the train station are going to be making a lot. So if you have like a ferry, an airport, train station, a bus stop, a streetcar stop, things like that, they're going to be generating a lot of trash. So that's kind of where you need to gauge whether your garbage disposal system is good enough or not. And then additionally, if you can afford it, because it's $111,000, a recycling center can actually take the garbage, take it in, and then ship it out as remade plastic, metal, alloy, etc., and you can actually make money from the garbage. So even though it costs a lot, in the long run, you will get the money back in no time. Fire risk map. This helps you figure out where to place those fire stations I was talking about. Usually a lot of the homes are going to be fairly low risk. Again, garbage pileup and sewage blockage cause higher risks of fire. So if we go to the garbage one, we can see a lot of these red buildings have garbage built up in them, and then what do you know, they're the ones with the fire risk. From what I can tell, public buildings like the train station and town hall cannot actually catch fire, which is a good thing. But, you know, a fire anywhere is bad, regardless of whether it's an important building or not. So this is good to figure out where to mitigate and where to place your fire stations, and also where you need to focus more on being able to get trucks there. Maybe build an extra street or two. If you have like a high concentrated area, like this building in particular is very susceptible to fire in comparison to the rest of the town. So maybe building a fire station up here, like I discussed earlier, to cater to the industrial area would be a smart move. Next, we have the health map. You can see there's been a few deaths, even though I do have a clinic. Clinics don't work too well unless they're upgraded. You've got injury, death, and illness. You can kind of see where the concentration of injuries are happening. So you can, again, cater to where you're placing the clinic. Also, you can see the levels of your hospital, you know, waiting versus being treated. Everyone's being treated here. No one's being forced to wait. And then if there's actually individuals moving about that are injured or ill, you can see the symbol above their head. You know, hopefully they're heading towards the hospital or an ambulance is on its way. But again, I find that it's helpful to have at least 2 clinics, and then removing a clinic and upgrading it to a hospital once you have the tech and money for it is another good move as well, because the hospital provides additional services and functions. But that's pretty late game stuff. Additionally, we have the crime map. Right now there are no criminals because this game has not been running long enough for them to initiate that function, but we do have some police coverage with the precinct. I'm not quite sure how it determines where additional police coverage pops up. It's just been kind of random from what I can tell, but you'll always have some around the actual location, so that's good. Additionally, you can see where events have happened, so you can see where you need to place more coverage. Also, you can see where criminals are hiding out, so again, you can adjust your coverage there as well. And again, typically I would vote for 2 police stations and then upgrading one to a police precinct later on when you can afford it. In this row, we've got the education map last. We don't have a school here, so everyone is going to be unenrolled, but you can see that, you know, 2 kids per household, because everyone is low density right now, so not too serious. And then there will be some green bars popping up if they are enrolled, and you can even check on your school bus system by seeing where students are waiting and how many are waiting and how long, etc. Quick note on education, I'll leave it for another tutorial, but keep in mind you don't need to put bus stops in your industrial area or your commercial area because there aren't going to be kids waiting to get picked up there. This map is your germ map. It kind of lets you know where and what kind of issues you're having in relation to germs, which later translate into health problems. I had a little bit of sewage issue prior to recording this. That's why you can see there's been some sewage overflow in the mines and a few of these houses. Additionally, the air pollution you can see from all these factories and mines is flowing over these houses down here. You can use this in conjunction with the wind map later in this row to see where it's going to avoid that air pollution and germ. If you can completely avoid this, then that's pretty awesome, and you can avoid just one more health problem for your town. So it's a lot of using these data maps in conjunction. Additionally, places that are suffering from air pollution are more likely to produce sick people, so that can help you position and place clinics and hospitals as well. Air pollution map, you can see what's generating the most air pollution and how bad it actually is. None of these are particularly bad, however they are putting out pollution fairly solidly. So keep that in mind as you build your factories, which is why you want to keep them in a secluded area. Pretty straightforward stuff. But you definitely don't want to put anyone near an area with high pollution, otherwise that germ map becomes a serious factor and you'll pretty much have constant complaining. Ground pollution map, typically your sewage outflow pipe is going to be the strongest ground polluter you've got, in addition to garbage dumps. Factories naturally create ground pollution as well. They're pretty much just bad for the environment in general, but they are a must. Wind map we went over, it kind of helps you determine what direction your wind plan is going to be pointing. Not that that matters too much. But additionally, on some maps you can actually notice when you go to place your wind farm that certain areas will be bluer than others. Like this high-rise plateau, I can guarantee you will be receiving more wind than, say, down here, because you've got the blockage. Now, in real world, you'd actually have a downflow of slope, which might increase the airflow, but you can't ask that much from a video game. Let's keep it real, guys. So, finally, we have the radiation map, which in my last city that I was playing in, I had said screw it and built a nuclear reactor because I was having constant power problems with my wind farm. And it did melt down, and it basically irradiated my entire city. So be very careful with that. Make sure you have educated enough workers. And that's pretty much how that runs. This one is straightforward. Basically, if there's radiation anywhere, no one's going to be able to do anything. This is your mass transit section. I don't have a bus station or pretty much streetcars or anything in here other than this train station. So this kind of just shows you where your buses are going, where there's stops, and how many people are waiting at each location. Basically, if you see too much waiting, build some more buses, maybe another bus station, you'll be good to go. Additionally, streetcars, same thing, and trains. So it'll highlight your train station. If you have an actual rail network running through your city, then you can actually notice it, but I don't. Again, it's the same situation, though. And boats I haven't messed with that much, so I can't really give too much insight there, but I would imagine it's based on how many ferry ports you have, how clogged it is, and it might show you actually kind of what directions they're traveling. I haven't messed with it much. So finally, our resource maps down here. We have coal. You can see the coal under the ground. This is what I was talking about. I'd cover it in the future. I'm just doing a light overview of the data map now. You can see the concentration, and then it slowly dissipates the further away from the center points they are. Additionally, we've got ore, which is the primary resource of this particular map. You can see also how much each location is storing of ore and how much they're pulling out. Basically, this helps you figure out where you want to put your actual ore mines, as well as oil and coal, depending on what resource you're working with. What I've noticed is you don't really want to put the road running straight over it, because then it kind of ruins your chances for about half that deposit. You want to skirt it, like I have this curved road here. I'm skirting the whole deposit so I can place potentially, well, I had to put my power there, but if that wasn't there, I could put an ore mine here, which would easily be able to grab these two spots, probably that third one too. This one is pretty much right on top of the biggest deposit here, and this one is right on top of that concentration you can see a little bit underneath, and it can extend out here with its 4 modules to grab that large deposit there. There's also the smaller one for later expansion if I so choose. Finally, let's take a look at the oil map. Pretty much straightforward like everything else. There's a large oil deposit that dissipates further out. Initially, you will pull out crude oil, and later, once you get oil HQ, you can turn it into plastic and fuel, and then push it out as well, making a lot of money. These 3 resources can provide your town with massive amounts of money. However, keep in mind from the earlier maps, they are large germ pollution and all around nasty buildings to have. However, they do make a lot of money. Finally, we've got our trade map, and we're almost done here. Kind of tells you where a lot of your resources are allocated. Based on color, you can see which resource it's referencing to, but that just kind of lets you know where all of that is at and how well it's doing at a quick glance. Finally, we've got the tourism map. It'll point out hotels in your city, which are actually commercial buildings, and you need high wealth commercial or high density commercial, one or both, to have good hotels. You can see how many guests are at each one, and then kind of what level of tourist you're going to have in your city. Low, medium, or high wealth. Again, better buildings, better monuments, you're going to have higher wealth people. So that's kind of a quick overview of the maps. Again, I'm going to highlight that the land value map is by far the most important one. It helps show you where you can potentially expand and improve what is there, and what is kind of encroaching on areas and limiting your ability to improve your city as well as your income. Also on top of that, depending on what kind of specialization you have, primarily the gambling one, the crime map is very important. You're going to have criminals running all over if you have a gambling house. At that point, I would suggest having maybe anywhere from 2 to 4 police stations, including the precinct, if you do go the gambling route, because it does tend to breed criminals. Other than that, most of them are just like, at a quick glance, I want to know what's going on with this, that, or the other, and it kind of helps you figure out where you need to spend your focus with various different functions of your city. I hope that you guys found this helpful. If there's any particular map that you'd like me to go more in-depth on with how to read it and what it actually helps you with, go ahead and leave a comment below, and I will be more than happy to push that tutorial out to you guys. And thanks for watching. Be on the lookout for more tutorials. Those of you SimCity players, those of you just watching, the game is stupidly fun and addicting. I would highly, highly recommend you get it. It's great. Even with all the bugs, they're all workable. You can work around them all now, and EA is working very hard, I'm sure, to fix them. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace!